I was kneeling in the middle of our bedroom, holding the torn pieces of the letter I had hidden for years. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding louder than the thunder outside. I had just overheard him, the man I gave up everything for, telling another woman on the phone that he never loved me. He said I was just a safe choice, someone he could control, someone who wouldn't go anywhere. And then he laughed, laughing at how easy I had been to trap. That laugh stayed in my head like a hammer, breaking everything I ever believed. I had given up my dreams, my future, my family, for him. And he never loved me. I sat on the cold floor, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. And that's when I knew something inside me had snapped. But just as I stood up to leave, to finally walk away from this prison I had called love, the door creaked open. And he stood there, holding something behind his back. Now let me tell you how it all began. When I was a young girl, I had a big dream. I wanted to be a singer. Not just a singer in the village church or at weddings. I wanted to sing on big stages, with bright lights and huge crowds. I wanted to be someone. My voice was my gift. People used to say I had a golden voice, that I could touch hearts when I sang. I believed them. I believed that music would take me far. My parents weren't rich, but they supported me. My father even sold his favorite goat just so I could go to a music school in the city. My mother used to sit outside the kitchen while I practiced and clapped like I was already famous. I was happy. I was full of hope. I was ready to fly. And then I met him, Michael. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He wasn't even very smart. But he had charm. He had the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only one in the room. He listened to me. He laughed at my jokes. He told me I was beautiful without makeup, and that he had never heard a voice as sweet as mine. At first, I didn't want to like him. I had dreams. I had plans. Love was not part of it. But Michael kept showing up. He came to my school with flowers. He waited outside the music hall with my favorite snacks. He even bought a small radio just so he could record my voice when I sang. He said, "One day, I'll be your biggest fan." Slowly, my heart began to melt. I told myself I could still chase my dreams and have him too. That love wouldn't stop me. It would lift me higher. But one day, everything changed. It was a cold Monday morning. I was getting ready for an important audition. A big music producer was coming from abroad, and the school had picked me to sing. If I impressed him, I could be taken to London to train as a professional singer. It was everything I had prayed for. But that same morning, Michael showed up at my door crying. "My mother is sick," he said. "They need me to come home, and I can't go alone. I'm scared. Please come with me." I stood there, torn. My dream was calling. But Michael was weeping in front of me like a broken child. "I need you," he whispered. "Please don't let me go through this alone." So, I gave up the audition. I packed my bag. I followed him to his village. His mother wasn't sick. She had a headache. That was the first time I felt something wasn't right. But I stayed. I told myself it was just one chance missed, another would come. I helped his family. I washed. I cooked. I sang in the small church on Sundays. Weeks turned to months. Months into a year. No more auditions. No more stages. Just a small town, small dreams, and a growing emptiness inside me. One night, I asked Michael if I could go back to the city, just for one more audition. He smiled and said, "Why? You have everything here. Me. A home. A future. You don't need to sing for the world. Just sing for me." And I believed him. I married him that same year. But the singing stopped. The dreams faded. Every time I tried to talk about music, he laughed and said I was being childish. "Dreams don't feed families," he said. "You're a wife now. Be happy with that." First, I tried to pretend. I told myself love was more important, that my dream could wait. But I didn't feel loved. Michael changed after we married. He stopped smiling at me. He stopped caring. He came home late. He started drinking. He shouted at me over small things. And worst of all, he looked at me like I was a burden. I became a shadow in my own house. The radio he once used to record my songs sat dusty in the corner. My voice, once my greatest joy, was now something I only used to ask, "What do you want to eat?" I cried often but quietly. I didn't want my neighbors to hear. I didn't want my parents to know I had failed, that I had thrown away my dream for a man who never really saw me. Then one day, I found a letter in his drawer. It was from another woman. A love letter. In it, she thanked him for finally choosing her over that boring village wife. She called me names. Ugly names. And at the bottom of the letter, he had written, *, she was never the one. I just needed someone to take care of things. *. I broke. That night, I stayed awake, watching him sleep, wondering how many lies he had told me, wondering how blind I had been. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to run. But I didn't. Instead, I waited. I watched. I listened. And one evening he made the call. The call that shattered what little hope I had left. He didn't know I was outside the room listening. He told her. I never loved her. She was just convenient. She left her dreams for me. That's how I knew she'd never leave. She's a fool. Then he laughed. That laugh. I fell to my knees. I cried until there was nothing left. And that's where he found me, kneeling, broken, holding the torn letter. When he walked in, I saw the shock in his eyes. But before I could say a word, he pulled something from behind his back. It was a suitcase. And he said, I think it's time you left. I stared at the suitcase in his hand, frozen like a statue. My mouth opened, but no words came out. My legs felt weak, like the ground beneath me had disappeared. He tossed the suitcase onto the bed like I was just a guest who had overstayed. I already packed your things, he said, without looking me in the eye. You can go stay with your people or wherever you want. Just don't be here when I get back. It felt like my heart stopped beating. After everything I had given up for him, after every dream I had buried, he wanted me gone? Just like that? I slowly got up from the floor. My legs shook as I walked to the bed and opened the suitcase. My clothes were thrown inside like trash. No care, no love, just tossed like old rags. Even the dress I wore on our wedding day was crumpled at the bottom. Where do you expect me to go? I finally asked, my voice barely louder than a whisper. He shrugged. That's not my problem. I wanted to scream, to throw the suitcase at him, to break everything in that room, but I didn't. I stood there, numb, remembering all the times I had believed his lies. All the times I had told myself he loves me. I wiped my tears and closed the suitcase. I walked out without another word. As I stepped into the street, the wind slapped my face. It was dark. It was raining. I had no plan, no money, no phone. I had not spoken to my parents in years. Not since I left my music dreams for Michael. I didn't know if they would even take me back. But I walked. I walked for hours, soaked cold, with nothing but memories keeping me company. My feet hurt, my stomach was empty, but I couldn't stop. By morning, I reached the edge of town. I found an old bench near a market and sat down, shivering. People passed by, some stared, but no one said anything. I looked like a mad woman. Maybe I was. Then I heard a voice. Auntie, are you okay? I looked up. A young girl, maybe 10 or 11, was standing in front of me with a small basket of bread. Her eyes were wide with worry. I tried to smile but ended up crying again. She sat beside me and gave me a piece of bread. You can have this, she said. My mummy always says God sees everyone, even the forgotten ones. I had no strength to say thank you, but I took the bread and ate it slowly. That little girl reminded me of myself, before the pain, before the regret. When I had finished eating, she pointed to a woman across the street. That's my mummy. You can rest at our shop for a while. I followed her. The woman, kind and warm, didn't ask too many questions. She gave me a chair, a towel to dry off, and even a hot cup of tea. I don't know your story, she said, but I can see sorrow in your eyes. Rest. Then decide what comes next. Her words stayed with me. For 3 days I stayed near their small shop. I helped them sell bread. I cleaned. I kept quiet. The woman, Mama Grace, told me I reminded her of her sister who had died long ago. She didn't pressure me. She just let me be. On the 4th day, I decided to go back to my village. I had no choice. I needed to face my past. I took a bus, holding nothing but the small suitcase and a heart full of shame. When I got to my parents' house, I stood at the gate for a long time. Everything looked smaller. The trees, the roof, the road. Or maybe it was me that had shrunk. I knocked. My father opened the door. His hair was all white now. His eyes widened when he saw me. For a moment we just stared at each other. Then he said, "Come in, child." I fell into his arms and cried like a baby. My mother came running from the backyard. When she saw me, she covered her mouth and gasped. But she didn't ask questions. She just hugged me tight. That night I told them everything. From the day I met Michael to the day he threw me out. I told them about the dreams I gave up, the music I abandoned, the pain I carried. They didn't judge me. They didn't say, "We told you so." Instead, my mother held my hand and said, "You may have walked away from your dream, but your dream never walked away from you." Those words healed something in me. The next morning I woke up early and walked to the village church. I asked the pastor if I could sing a song before the service ended. He agreed. As I stood in front of the small crowd, my heart pounded. It had been years since I sang in front of people. My voice was shaky at first. But then something happened. The words flowed from me like a river. The people were quiet, their eyes filled with tears. I saw smiles. I saw hope. And for the first time in a long while, I felt alive. After the song, an old woman walked up to me and said, "God didn't take your voice. You did. But now you've found it again. Don't let it go this time." That night, I sat by the window of my old room and wrote in my journal, "I gave up my dreams for love, but he never loved me. Now I will love myself enough to chase those dreams again." The next week, I started teaching young girls in the village how to sing. I didn't have money. I didn't have fancy instruments. But I had my voice, and that was enough. People began to notice. Soon, parents from nearby villages brought their daughters to me. I taught them for free. All I asked was that they believe in themselves even if no one else did. One evening, as I was walking home from class, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down. And there he was, Michael. He looked tired. Older. His eyes didn't shine like they used to. He got out of the car and walked toward me. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stood still. He sighed. "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't mean to hurt you." I said nothing. "I miss you," he whispered. "Come back. We can start over." I looked at him long and hard. The same man who once told another woman I was just convenient now wanted me back? And then, without warning, a woman stepped out of the car, pregnant, angry, shouting. "You said you were done with her," she screamed. "Why are you talking to her again?" Michael froze. I smiled. And I turned around to walk away. But just as I took the first step, the woman pulled something from her bag and pointed it straight at me. The street froze. Her hand trembled as she pointed the small black object at me. My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, the world went silent. No breeze, no sound, nothing. Just that cold metal in her hand and her burning eyes locked onto mine. I said, "Leave him alone," she screamed, her voice shaking with rage. "He's mine now. You had your turn." Michael stepped in front of her, trying to push the gun down. "Sandra, stop it. What are you doing?" But she wouldn't listen. "You lied to me, Michael," she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You said she was nothing. You said she was gone forever." My feet were frozen to the ground. I didn't know whether to run or scream. I wasn't even sure if it was real. Was I really about to be shot in the street by the same man I gave up my whole life for? Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind. "Put that gun down." It was the village chief's son, Daniel, rushing from the shop nearby. He had seen everything. More people gathered, peeking from corners, peering out from windows, whispering in fear. Sandra panicked and dropped the gun. It hit the ground with a dull thud. Daniel quickly picked it up and called the police. Michael tried to explain, but no one was listening anymore. I walked away without saying a word. But something inside me changed that day. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was finally free. Michael and Sandra were taken away that evening. The police said Sandra had stolen the gun from her uncle, who worked at a security company. She was later charged for attempted assault. Michael was questioned too. Apparently, I wasn't the only woman he had played with. There were others. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window again, looking at the stars. I thought about how close I had come to dying. All because I loved the wrong man. All because I let someone else tell me what I was worth. But the truth was, I had forgotten my own worth long before he did. And that was the biggest mistake of all. The next morning, something inside me lit up like fire. I knew what I had to do. I went into town and met with the principal of the local school. I asked if I could volunteer to start a small music club for girls. He raised an eyebrow. Music? Yes, I said. There are girls here with dreams. Big dreams. But no one listens to them. I want to change that. He agreed. The first day, only 3 girls showed up. One was too shy to speak. Another said her father told her singing was for useless women. The third wanted to learn, but she couldn't sing in tune to save her life. I didn't give up. Every afternoon I worked with them. We clapped our hands, we hummed, we laughed, we cried. Word spread. In 2 weeks 10 girls came. In a month 20. By the 3rd month we had over 30 girls attending from 3 villages. I borrowed drums from the church, bought notebooks with my savings, and taught them everything I had ever learned about music, voice, and courage. The local radio station heard about our little group and invited us to sing live. It was the first time I stepped in front of a microphone in years. When I sang, I closed my eyes. I didn't think about the past. I didn't think about Michael. I thought about that little girl in me, the one who used to sing to the stars, dreaming of the world. And I sang for her. The calls came pouring in after the performance. People wanted to sponsor the girls, donate instruments, even book us to sing at events. But what touched me the most was a single letter, handwritten and folded neatly in an envelope. It read, "I heard your voice on the radio. It made me cry. I used to sing too, until my husband told me to stop. Thank you for reminding me that my voice still matters." That's when I knew I was doing something bigger than myself. But not everyone was happy. There were men in the village, fathers, husbands, brothers, who didn't like what I was doing. They said I was filling the girls' heads with lies. They said, "Music won't feed them." They said, "You're teaching them to disobey." One day after practice, I found my classroom door smashed. The chairs were broken, the drums slashed. A note was pinned to the wall. "Go back to your husband or leave this village." I stood there looking at the mess. The girls behind me were crying. Some were scared. One even said she wouldn't come back. But I smiled. "This is proof," I said, "that what we're doing matters. They're scared because we are strong." I bent down and began picking up the broken pieces. One by one the girls joined me. Together we cleaned the room and made it even better than before. The next week we sang louder than ever. We performed a song I wrote called "She Remembered Herself." It went like this. Musical note: she gave up dreams for love and cried. She hid her voice, she ran and tried. But in her pain, she found her name. And now she sings without the shame. Musical note. The crowd stood up and clapped, some with tears in their eyes. My parents were in the front row. My father smiled at me like I was still his little girl. And my mother mouthed the words, "I'm proud of you." I had built something beautiful from my brokenness. But the joy didn't last long. That night, as I walked home, a man in a black cap stepped out from behind a tree and blocked my path. He said, "You think you're better than us now?" I stepped back, my heart pounding. He pulled something from his pocket, sharp, shiny, and said, "You ruined everything. And now you're going to pay." The silver blade glinted under the moonlight as he stepped closer, his breath heavy and angry. My legs froze again. I wanted to run, scream, disappear, but I couldn't move. My heart beat so loud it drowned the sound of the crickets in the bush. "Please," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Why are you doing this? You turned my daughter against me." He spat. "She used to listen. Now all she talks about is music and freedom. Because of you." I recognized him. He was the father of one of my girls, Anita. He had forbidden her from joining the music group, but she came anyway, always sneaking out after her chores. "I didn't turn her against you," I said carefully. "I just showed her that her dreams matter." He growled and lifted the knife. Then just before he stepped forward, someone shouted, "Hey!" Another figure appeared from the shadows, Daniel again, the chief's son. He ran toward us with a long stick in hand. The man dropped the knife and bolted into the bushes. I collapsed on the ground, shaking, my eyes wide with fear. Daniel knelt beside me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, but the tears wouldn't stop falling. I was tired. Tired of being punished for wanting more. Tired of being hated for helping others rise. Tired of being afraid. Daniel helped me home that night. He didn't say much, but his presence calmed me. After he left, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything: Michael, the village, the girls, the threats. I almost gave up again. I almost told myself it was safer to stay small, stay quiet, stay hidden. But then I remembered the faces of the girls, their smiles when they sang, the sparkle in their eyes when they found their voice. And I remembered the woman I used to be, the girl with dreams, the young woman who gave it all away for love, and the broken wife who got thrown out with a suitcase. I couldn't give up again. The next day I called a village meeting. Everyone came, even the elders. I stood in front of them. Not as a victim, not as a widow, not as a poor woman, but as a leader. "I know some of you want me to stop," I began. "I know some of you are angry because your daughters now dream bigger than this village." The crowd was silent. "But let me ask you this. What is wrong with a girl having a dream? What is wrong with teaching them to believe in themselves? To use their voices?" A few men grumbled, but many women nodded, some even clapped softly. I continued. "I gave up my dream once. I gave it up for a man who never loved me. I thought love meant losing myself. I thought silence meant peace. I was wrong." Now the silence was full. Everyone listening. I found my voice again. And I will never let it go. And I won't let your daughters lose theirs either. If that makes me an enemy, so be it. But I will keep singing. I will keep teaching. And I will keep fighting for every girl who dares to dream. One old woman stood and clapped. Then another. Then the chief's wife. Then all the women rose. Some men stood too. Not all, but enough. It was the first time in my life I felt truly powerful. Not because people feared me, but because they finally saw me. That week, we rebuilt the classroom. We got a lock for the door. We put bars on the windows. The community came together. Those who once whispered now offered help. We organized a village talent show. All the girls were invited to perform. Their parents were told to come and see what their daughters had been learning. The day of the show arrived. The sun was hot. The crowd was large. The stage was simple, a wooden platform with a colorful cloth behind it, but it felt like a dream. One by one the girls sang. Some danced. One even recited a poem about women who gave up their dreams, and those who found them again. The people clapped. They cheered. Some wiped away tears. Then it was my turn. I stepped up slowly. The crowd hushed. I held the microphone and looked out at the people. My parents. The children. The mothers. The girls. And I began to sing. Musical note. I thought love meant silence. But now I know my song. My voice was never broken. It was waiting all along. Musical note. By the time I finished, the crowd stood in applause. They clapped, cheered, and even chanted my name. I bowed with tears in my eyes. Later that evening after the show, someone knocked on my door. I opened it, expecting one of the girls. But it wasn't. It was Michael's mother. Her eyes were red. She looked older, thinner, tired. "I need to speak with you," she said quietly. "It's about Michael, he's missing." I stared at her, confused. "Missing?" She nodded, her eyes welling with tears. "Since last week. No one has seen him. His phone is off. The police have been to his house. Sandra said he left after an argument and never came back." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to close the door. After all, this was the same woman who once told me I didn't deserve her son. She had treated me like a servant when I lived in their home, always reminding me that I wasn't good enough for her boy. But tonight, she looked like a mother, just a mother. Worried. Broken. "Please," she whispered. "I know how things ended between you two, but you're the only one who ever really knew him. Do you think he would have done something to himself?" The question hit me hard. Had Michael finally drowned in the mess he made? I didn't know. I told her I hadn't heard from him and promised to let her know if I did. She thanked me and left, limping slightly as she walked away. I closed the door and sat down. Michael missing? I hadn't thought about him since the last time he tried to come back. I had moved on. I was healing. I was building something new. But now this. My mind was spinning. That night I couldn't sleep. Memories of our life together flooded in. The sweet words, the empty promises, the day I gave up my audition, the way he laughed on the phone with that other woman, the suitcase on the bed, the way he looked at me like I was nothing. Why did his disappearance still affect me? Because I once loved him. Because deep down I still remembered the man he used to pretend to be. I stood up, took my journal and wrote. I gave up everything for love. And still I worry for the one who threw me away. Is this what love leaves behind? Or is this just who I am? The next day I went to the police station. They confirmed that Michael had been reported missing. Last seen walking along the forest path outside town. Sandra claimed he was acting strange before he left, talking to himself, pacing, blaming everyone for his problems. I asked, "Did anyone search the forest?" The officer shook his head. "Too dangerous. We'll wait to see if he turns up first." I left the station, but my heart was heavy. What if he was out there, hurt, alone, regretting everything? I didn't want to care, but I did. So that evening, I told Daniel everything. I told him about Michael's disappearance, the last words his mother said, and how I felt stuck between my past and my present. He listened quietly, then said, "I'll go with you." "Go with me where?" I asked. "To the forest." My heart stopped. He was serious. Early the next morning we packed water, flashlights, and snacks. Daniel brought a walking stick, and I brought a scarf Michael had once given me. I don't know why. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe I needed closure. We told my parents where we were going and promised to be back before dark. The forest was thick, the air damp and quiet. Birds chirped above, but the deeper we went, the more silent everything became. We walked for hours calling his name. "Michael. Michael, are you there?" Nothing. Just trees, wind, and shadows. At one point, we found a torn shoe. Daniel picked it up. "It's a man's," he said. "Old. Worn. Could be his." We kept going. Around midday we found something else. A small bag, dirty, half buried under leaves. Inside were some papers, a broken phone, and a photo of Michael and Sandra together. Daniel looked at me. "He's been here." My legs felt weak. I sat on a fallen tree, breathing heavily. Suddenly a sound. A rustle in the bushes. We both stood still. "Michael." Daniel called. No answer. The rustling stopped. Then from behind a thick tree, a figure appeared. Dirty, thin, bearded. It was him. Michael. He looked at me like I was a ghost. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then he dropped to the ground and began to cry. I didn't know what to do. Daniel rushed to him, gave him water. Michael drank like someone who hadn't tasted anything in days. "I didn't know where to go," he finally whispered. "Everyone hates me. Sandra left. My job's gone." I thought, maybe it would be better to disappear. I felt so many things, anger, sadness, pity. But mostly I felt peace. Because in that moment I realized I had finally let go. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to save him. He had broken himself. I stood there and said, "We'll get you home. But after that, I want nothing more to do with you. You made your choices. And I've made mine." He nodded. We helped him walk back to the village. The police took him in for questioning about Sandra's earlier threats. His mother came to thank me, crying again. But this time I didn't cry. I walked home, bathed, and went to my music group. The girls were waiting. When they saw me, they cheered. "Miss Grace, you're back." I smiled and picked up the small drum. "Let's begin," I said. The girls clapped and gathered around. But just as we were about to start, a strange man entered the room. He was tall, dressed in a smart suit, and holding a briefcase. "I'm looking for Grace Adesawa," he said. I stepped forward slowly. "I represent a music label in Lagos," he said. "We heard your radio performance. We'd like to offer you a recording opportunity. You and your girls." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. "A recording opportunity?" I asked, blinking at the man in disbelief. He nodded, adjusting his glasses. "Yes. We heard you and your students on the community radio. The emotion in your voice, the originality of your lyrics, it stood out. One of our producers happened to be passing through town that day and was so moved, he contacted us. We believe you have something rare. Something the world needs to hear. The girls gasped. Some clapped. One even squealed with excitement. But I just stood there, heart pounding in my chest. It was like life had come full circle. The dream I had buried years ago, the dream I thought I lost when I followed Michael into the shadows, had found its way back to me. Not only for me, but for the young girls I now mentored. What exactly are you offering? I asked, trying to stay calm. The man smiled. We'd like to fly you and your girls to Lagos for a recording project. We'll provide accommodation, transport, and studio time. We'd start with 1 track, maybe 2. If things go well, we'll talk about more. The girls exploded into cheers. I didn't. Not yet. Why us? I asked. Because your music tells a story. A true one. And that's what the world connects with. You didn't just teach these girls how to sing. You taught them how to rise. My eyes filled with tears, but I didn't let them fall. I asked for time to think. He agreed to return in 2 days with the paperwork. After he left, I sat the girls down. This opportunity is big, I said. But it will take courage. We'll be away from home. There will be pressure. And fame, it changes things. Are you ready for that? They nodded. One said, we're ready because you made us believe in ourselves. Another whispered, if you go, we'll go. I smiled. That night, I went home and sat with my parents. I told them everything. They listened quietly. My father leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. My mother held my hand. I'm proud of you, my father said. But are you doing this for yourself? Or to fix what was broken? I'm doing it because I've found my voice again, I replied. And I want them to keep theirs. He nodded. Then go. 2 days later, the man returned with the contract. I signed it, hands shaking. The girls' parents were called. Most agreed. A few were hesitant, but after seeing their daughters sing again at a small village concert, they changed their minds. One mother said, if she had someone like you when she was a girl, maybe my life would be different. We prepared. Clothes were packed. Songs were chosen. Farewells were said. The day we left for Lagos, the entire village came out to wave us goodbye. The chief handed me a small wrapped gift. Inside was a necklace with a tiny charm shaped like a microphone. You speak for us all, he said. The journey was long, but filled with laughter. The girls had never been on a plane before. They screamed and held each other's hands during takeoff, then giggled and asked for juice every 5 minutes. When we arrived, the city lights blinded us, but the girls glowed brighter. The music studio was like something from a movie. Glass walls, huge speakers, wires everywhere, and a man in the control room with a beard and headphones. Welcome, he said. Let's make something beautiful. Recording wasn't easy. Some of the girls struggled with nerves. One cried and almost gave up. But I pulled her aside and reminded her of why she started. You're not here to be perfect, I said. You're here to be you. That's more than enough. She smiled and tried again. This time she nailed it. We recorded 2 songs. One called Sing Loud, Sing Proud, an anthem for every girl who had ever been silenced. The other called Mama, I Remember, a slow, emotional piece about mothers and lost dreams. The producer wiped tears after the second one. He said, we're going to release this to the world. We stayed in Lagos for 2 weeks. Interviews, rehearsals, more recordings. The girls started gaining fans online. People from other countries sent messages, praising their courage and their voices. One morning I received a call from a major talk show. They wanted me on their next episode, to talk about how I built the village music group from pain and heartbreak. I agreed. The day of the show came and I sat under bright studio lights. Cameras pointed at me, makeup on my face, microphone clipped to my dress. The host smiled and said, you were once a woman who gave up her dreams for love. Tell us what changed. I took a deep breath and looked into the camera. I gave up my dreams for love. And he never loved me. But that's not where my story ended. I found love again, not from a man but from music. From the girls I teach. From the strength I found after breaking. My dream wasn't lost. It was just waiting for me to be ready. The audience clapped. After the show aired, we were invited to perform at a national music festival. It was the biggest stage I had ever seen. The girls stood behind me, dressed in bright village prints, their eyes wide with excitement. As the lights came on and the music began, I stepped forward and sang the first line. Musical note. This voice was buried once in pain, but now it soars, it flies again. Musical note. The crowd stood. Phones flashed. Tears rang out. We were a hit. Later that night, back at the hotel, I sat alone on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below. My heart was full. And then my phone rang. A number I didn't know. I answered. A quiet voice spoke. Grace, it's Sandra. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But please, I need your help. It's about the baby. It's Michael's. And he's run away again. I froze. My fingers tightened around the phone. What did you just say? I asked slowly, my voice shaking. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then she whispered. I had a baby, Grace, with Michael. But he's gone now. He left me alone with the child. I don't know what to do. I felt like the floor had disappeared under me. The lights of the city blurred as tears gathered in my eyes. Michael. Again. Even after everything, he still found a way to crash back into my life, dragging pain behind him like a storm. And Sandra? The girl who stole him from me? She was now me. Left behind. Broken. Carrying the weight of a man who never truly loved anyone. I should have felt happy. I should have said, good for you. Now you know how it feels. But I didn't. All I felt was sorrow. For her. For the baby. And for the broken girl I used to be. I took a deep breath. Where are you now? I'm in Ibadan, she said, sniffling. I have no job. I've been staying with someone who's about to kick me out. The baby is sick, and I don't have money for the hospital. I didn't answer right away. Inside, a war was happening in my heart. One side said leave her. She chose her path. The other said, you once begged for help and no one listened. I'll send you money for the hospital, I finally said. But that's all I can do for now. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't know who else to call. I'm sorry for everything. I hung up without replying. I stared out at the night sky, the sounds of the city mixing with the beating of my heart. The next day, I sent money through a trusted contact. I didn't tell the girls. I kept it to myself. But the moment shifted something deep inside me. I had moved on. But Michael's shadow still reached into my light. I decided to face it. I found a quiet day, called my parents, and returned to my village for a weekend. I stood in the same compound where I once cried after Michael first disappeared. I sat in the same room where I tore my music books in silence. Then I walked to the back of the house and opened an old wooden box where I had stored my last handwritten songs. I took them out, faded with time but still filled with fire. One song stood out. I am still here. I read the lyrics and smiled. That night, I held a small gathering of the village girls who had not gone to Lagos with us. We sat under the moonlight. I sang that song to them, my voice raw, honest, full of years. They clapped. Some cried. One hugged me tightly. Thank you for not giving up, she said. Because you didn't, I know I don't have to. When I returned to Lagos, things picked up quickly. Our recorded songs had gone viral. We were invited to speak at women's conferences. Newspapers wrote about our story. How one village woman turned heartbreak into harmony. People began calling me Mama Voice. But fame came with its own struggles. Some of the girls got overwhelmed. One of them started acting rude, talking back, missing rehearsals. One day, after she refused to come for practice, I visited her hotel room. She sat on the bed, arms folded. I'm tired of singing village songs. I want to be a real star, with flashy clothes and my own song. I sat beside her. Do you know what real stars are made of? She rolled her eyes. Real stars shine because of what they've survived, not what they wear, I said gently. She was quiet for a long time. Then tears rolled down her cheeks. I just don't want to go back to being poor. My dad drinks. My mom sells food. They barely eat. I want more. My heart broke. I hugged her. You will have more. But never forget who you are. or where you come from. That's what makes you special. She returned to practice the next day. Things smoothed out again. The team grew stronger, tighter. We were invited to perform in Ghana. We crossed borders, taking our message further. At the airport, an elderly woman came to me and said, "I watched you on TV. My daughter tried to kill herself last year after her husband left. But she heard your song, Mama, I remember, and she found hope again. Thank you." I held the woman's hands, tears in my eyes. My dream, the one I thought I had lost forever, was now saving lives. Not through fame, but through truth. Then, just when things were getting better again, I received another call. It was Sandra again. But this time she was in the hospital. She had collapsed from stress. The baby was severely underweight. She begged me to come. Said she needed help, real help. That she had no one else. That she didn't even have enough milk to feed the child. I didn't want to go. I had done enough, hadn't I? But something inside me wouldn't let me sleep. So I went. When I saw her lying on the hospital bed, pale and thin, the baby wrapped beside her, something inside me cracked open. She looked like me years ago. Alone. Betrayed. Ashamed. I walked over, sat by her side. "Why did you call me?" I asked softly. She looked at me with red eyes. "Because I knew you'd understand. Because I knew you wouldn't laugh at me like the others." I didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, I touched the baby's hand. So small. So innocent. "What's her name?" "Hope," Sandra whispered. I named her Hope because I had none. I took a deep breath. That night I took Hope home with me. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. And as I rocked her to sleep in a hotel crib, I looked out at the Lagos skyline and whispered to the night, "I gave up my dreams for love. And he never loved me. But I still became more than I ever imagined." Just then there was a knock on the door. I opened it. And standing there was someone I never expected to see again. Michael. Looking broken. Dirty. His eyes filled with tears. He dropped to his knees. And said, "Grace, please. Help me. I've lost everything." I didn't move. I just stood there, holding baby Hope in my arms, staring at the man who had once shattered my world. Michael. Once the boy who promised me the stars, now the man who looked like he had fallen from them. His clothes were torn, his cheeks hollow, and his hands trembling. He knelt on the floor like a beggar. "Grace," he whispered again, "please. I have nowhere else to go." My heart was quiet, not racing with anger, not rushing with pity, just quiet. I looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully against my chest. Then I looked back at him. "You left me, Michael," I said softly. "You walked away without a word. And now you want to walk back in as if nothing happened." He dropped his head. "I know," he said. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I've done terrible things. I used people. Lied to them. Lied to you. I was a fool." He looked up at me, eyes full of tears. "But I loved you. I really did. I was just weak." I sat down slowly, still holding the baby. "Do you even know what love means?" I asked. "You say you loved me. But love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't leave a woman alone, pregnant, with nothing but shame." He started crying. Not the kind of crying people do when they want pity, but the deep, hurting cry of someone who's finally feeling the pain they caused. "I lost everything," he said. "After I left Sandra, I went from one woman to another, trying to fill the hole. I got scammed, beaten. I sold my phone, slept on the street. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw your face. I looked away. I didn't want to be touched by his story. I didn't want to fall into the trap of feeling sorry again. But inside me I was shaking. This was the man I once gave everything to. The man I threw away my dreams for. And now he was here at my feet. "What do you want, Michael?" I asked, my voice calm. He wiped his tears. "I want a second chance. Not as your husband. Not as Hope's father. Just as a human being. I want to be better. I want to help. Let me stay. Let me work. Even if it's cleaning floors." I looked at him long and hard. Then I said the words I never imagined would come out of my mouth. "You can stay." He raised his head, shocked. "But," I added firmly, "you are staying as a worker, not as a friend. You will respect every woman here. You will earn your way back, not beg for it. He nodded quickly, as if he had just been handed life again. Thank you, he whispered. I'll prove I've changed. The girls were confused at first when they saw Michael in the house, quietly sweeping floors and doing laundry. But I told them everything. No secrets. Some were angry. Some were scared. Some said I was too soft. But one of the youngest girls, Ada, came to me and said, You're teaching us something big. That healing doesn't mean revenge. It means rising higher. And that became our next song. Rising Higher. Weeks passed. Michael kept his word. He stayed out of trouble. He worked hard. He even volunteered to help with the children during rehearsals. He never touched Sandra's child without permission. He spoke little and smiled less. He was a shadow now, humble and quiet. One evening I found him sitting outside, writing something in a notebook. When he saw me, he quickly shut it. What are you writing? I asked. He hesitated, then handed it over. It was a letter. To me. In it he wrote, You gave up your dreams for me once, and I threw them away like they were nothing. But you rose again stronger, wiser. You taught me that love is not about taking. It's about giving life, even to those who don't deserve it. I'll never ask you to love me again. I only ask that you let me serve the dream you now live. Thank you, Grace, for saving me. Even when I didn't save you. I gave him the notebook back without a word. But inside me something softened. Not love, but peace. And that was more powerful. We went on to launch our own foundation, Dream Again, where young women from villages all over Nigeria came to learn music, storytelling, farming, business, and how to reclaim their worth. We built schools, opened shelters, held concerts that moved people to tears. People began calling me Mama Grace. And one day, I was invited to speak at the National Women's Summit in Abuja. I stood on stage in front of thousands of people. My old teacher was there. So were women who had once laughed at me. I told them my story, not to shame anyone, but to show that when a woman falls, she can rise again. Not for love, not for a man, but for herself. After the speech, a little girl walked up to me and said, Mama Grace, I want to sing like you. I knelt down and asked, Why? She smiled and said, Because when you sing, I believe I can be anything. That night, I sat alone under the stars. I remembered the music room I once dreamed of, the stage I never stood on, the love I never received. But I also saw the girls I had raised, the children we had saved, the women we had healed. And I smiled, because I realized something powerful. I didn't lose my dream. I just traded it. Not for love, but for purpose, for truth, for something bigger than applause or spotlight. I gave up my dreams for love, and he never loved me, but I became the dream, and that is the greatest love of all.